What makes a surgeon? Is it the white coat, crisp and pressed? Is it the expensive diploma, framed and hanging on a polished wall? What if I told you that the most talented surgeon in a Texas hospital, the one with the steadiest hands and the sharpest mind, was actually the janitor, the invisible man, the one mopping the floors? This is one of the most unbelievable African tales you will ever hear. This is the story of Samuel, a man who fled a brutal civil war in Nigeria, but who could not flee the destiny that was in his hands. This is the story of a life defined by contempt and redeemed by a single, impossible act of resistance. This is the story of an invisible man who, in an impossible moment, became a hero. Our character is Samuel. If you saw him in the brightly lit, sterile hallways of Houston General Hospital, you wouldn't even notice him. He was one of the invisible people. He was in his late 40s, but the trauma of his past had carved deep lines into his face, making him look older. He was quiet, humble, and always respectful. He never made eye contact. He worked the night shift from 11 p.m. to 7 a.m. as a janitor. He worked a second job during the day, washing cars under the brutal Texas sun. He was one of thousands of African immigrants in America, a ghost in the system, just trying to survive, trying to pay the next bill. The staff, the busy doctors and the overworked nurses, they held him in contempt. They didn't speak to him. They spoke through him. He was not a person. He was a function. He was a tool, meant to clean up a mess, to empty a trash can, to mop up the blood. Especially the hospital's star surgeon, the arrogant, brilliant, and cruel Dr. Wells. Wells was a man who saw the world in two categories: surgeons and obstacles. Samuel, to him, was not even an obstacle. He was just part of the wall. Dr. Wells would walk past Samuel, giving orders to his interns, never once acknowledging the man cleaning his shoes. But Dr. Wells, and everyone else in that hospital, had no idea about the secret. Samuel was not always a janitor. Before we continue this incredible, inspirational African story, if you love unbelievable tales of justice and the human spirit, hit that subscribe button for African Tales. We must go back. The flashback. 10 years earlier, Lagos, Nigeria. Samuel was not a janitor. He was not mopping floors. He was the most brilliant student in his medical school. He was born to be a surgeon. His hands were steady as a pianist's. His mind as sharp as a professor's. His professors called him the Hand. He had a gift, a calling. He was set to graduate at the top of his class, to become a neurosurgeon, to help his people. And then the Civil War began. The world ended. His university was bombed into rubble. His professors were killed or fled. His family was scattered, lost in the chaos. Samuel lost everything. His future, his family, his nation. He fled as a refugee, escaping the horror with nothing but the clothes on his back and the knowledge in his head. He arrived in America with $20 and a dream that was now a nightmare. His Nigerian medical degree, the proof of his genius, was worthless here. It was just a piece of paper from a place they couldn't pronounce. The only job he could find to survive was this: cleaning. So he cleaned for 10 years. But Samuel had not given up on his dream. He had just hidden it. Every night, while cleaning the luxurious wood-paneled offices of Dr. Wells and the other surgeons, he would stop. Before emptying the trash, he would look at the books on their shelves. The expensive, new surgical textbooks. Gray's Anatomy, Surgical Techniques, The Modern Surgeon. He would steal them, not to sell, to read. He would take a book, hide it under his janitor's cart, and take it home to his tiny apartment. He would read it all night, memorize a chapter, and then, the next night, He would sneak the book back onto the shelf, replacing it with another. He was a ghost, conducting his own silent medical school. At 3 a.m., when the halls were quiet, when no one was watching, Samuel would sneak into the surgical viewing gallery, the small amphitheater high above the operating rooms. He would sit in the darkness, alone. He would watch, under the massive, bright operating lights, as Dr. Wells performed complex, 8-hour procedures. He memorized every step. In his own mind, he performed the surgery alongside them. The incisions, the sutures, the precise, delicate movements. He saw Dr. Wells's mistakes. He saw the moments the surgeon's ego made him rush. Samuel, the janitor, knew he was better. He, on a janitor's salary, was getting the best medical education in the country. And then that night, it was a normal Tuesday. Samuel was mopping the hallway outside or 3. Dr. Wells, arrogant and tired, walked out of a successful surgery, stripping off his bloody gloves. He dropped a bloody scalpel on the floor. It clattered on the tile. He didn't even stop. He just yelled over his shoulder at Samuel. "Hey you, janitor. Clean that up." Samuel stopped. He looked at the doctor walking away. He bent down. He picked up the sacred instrument, the tool he had dedicated his life to, the thing he dreamed of holding, and he cleaned it like it was garbage. It was in that exact moment the sound hit. Not a sound, a roar. The doors to the emergency room burst open. A sound of chaos, a code black. A bridge collapse on the highway. A mass casualty event. Sirens wailed. The hospital turned into a war zone. Everyone was running. Doctors, nurses, all hands on deck. Dr. Wells, the star, was immediately pulled back into surgery. Every surgeon in the building was in an OR. The ER was overflowing. Samuel, in this chaos, tried to do his job. He was cleaning the bloody floors in the triage area, the place where they held the patients waiting for an open OR. The room was filled with gurneys. A young, terrified nurse, Anna, was running between them, trying to keep them stable. And then it happened. A man on a gurney, a construction worker, waiting for surgery, suddenly stopped breathing. His chest was gurgling. His eyes rolled back into his head. The nurse shouted, "Doctor, I need a doctor. He's crashing. Collapsed lung, pneumothorax." She looked around. There were no doctors in the room. They were all in surgery. "Damn it," the nurse screamed, bagging the man, trying to force air into him. "We're losing him. He's not going to make it." The man was seconds from death. The nurse was crying, and there were only 2 other people in that room, the dying man and Samuel, the janitor. Samuel looked at the small, sterile metal tray next to the gurney, the needle, the antiseptic, the scalpel. He remembered the article he had read in the journal. He'd fished from the trash last week. Emergency chest decompression for tension pneumothorax. He knew the statistics. He knew the procedure. Second, intercostal space, mid-clavicular line. He knew exactly what to do. But he was a janitor. If he touched that patient, it was a crime, assault, practicing medicine without a license. He would be arrested. He would be deported. His life would be over. If he did nothing, the man would die. The nurse looked at him, her eyes wide with panic. "What are you staring at? Go find someone. Get help." Samuel did not move. He looked at the dying man. He looked at the tray. He made a decision. He was a janitor, but he was also a surgeon. He dropped the mop. The sound of the cheap metal handle clattering on the sterile tile floor was the loudest sound in the world. It was the sound of his old life ending. The nurse, Anna, screamed, "What are you doing? Get away from him." He pushed her aside, gently but firmly. He grabbed the scalpel from the tray. His hands, after 10 years of washing floors and scrubbing cars, were not shaking. He found the spot, the second intercostal space. As he held the scalpel, the world slowed down. The chaos of the ER faded away. He was no longer in Houston. He was back in Lagos. He heard his professor's voice, a memory buried for a decade. "Do not look at the chaos," his professor would say. "Look only at the problem. You are not a man. You are an instrument. You are the hand of healing. Be bold, Samuel, but be precise. You are not cutting. You are healing." He remembered the war, the triage tents, the screams, the smell of copper and death. He remembered the patients he couldn't save, the ones who died while he was trying to find supplies, the blood on his hands in Nigeria. He would not let another one die. Not here. Not while he had the skill. He made the incision, a clean, precise cut. The nurse, Anna, gasped, thinking she was witnessing a murder. Samuel ignored her. He took the large bore needle. He pushed it into the tiny incision, through the muscle, into the chest cavity. It happened. A sound. A horrifying, sudden hiss, like a snake. It was the sound of the trapped air, the pressure, escaping the man's chest. The man on the gurney, who was seconds from death, gasped. A deep, ragged, desperate breath. His eyes focused. He was breathing. Samuel, the janitor, had saved his life. The nurse, Anna, stared at him, her hand over her mouth, in total, reverent shock. She wasn't looking at a janitor anymore. And at that exact, triumphant moment, Dr. Wells, the antagonist, burst into the room. He was finished with his other surgery, arrogant and energized by his own success. He did not see the miracle. He saw a nightmare. He saw the hospital janitor, in his dirty blue uniform, holding a bloody scalpel over an open wound on a patient's chest. "What in God's name are you doing?" Wells screamed. His voice echoed. "You animal! What did you do to him? Security! Call the police! Get this thing out of my triage! This is the betrayal. This is the injustice." Samuel did not resist. He dropped the scalpel on the tray. He put his hands up. Dr. Wells shoved him against the wall. "You could have killed him." The nurse, Anna, finally found her voice. "Doctor," she stammered. "He saved him." His lung collapsed. "He saved his life." Dr. Wells didn't even look at her. He saw the vital signs on the monitor stabilizing. He saw the hiss of the chest tube. He realized, with a horrifying wave of jealousy and rage, that the janitor had succeeded. This made it worse. "He contaminated a sterile field," Wells hissed. "He assaulted a patient. He's a lunatic." Security guards arrived. They grabbed Samuel. Samuel looked at Dr. Wells. He said nothing. He looked at the nurse, Anna. She was terrified. He looked at the patient, who was now breathing normally, looking back at Samuel with confused, grateful eyes. Samuel was put in handcuffs. He was charged with aggravated assault and practicing medicine without a license. The hospital, the corporation, was furious. They were facing a massive lawsuit, not from the patient, but for the patient's assault. They needed a scapegoat, and the mad African janitor, as the press soon called him, was the perfect one. Dr. Wells, the antagonist, wrote the official report. He testified that he had arrived just in time to save the patient from the janitor's psychotic attack. He claimed the janitor was a delusional immigrant, a witch doctor who had inexplicably stabbed the patient. Samuel was in a holding cell. His life was over. He would be deported. He would go to prison. He had saved a life, and it had cost him his own. This brings us to the climax, the trial. Samuel was in court. His suit was cheap. His lawyer, a court-appointed public defender, who believed he was guilty. The prosecutor, Contempt, mocked him. You, a janitor, thought you could perform surgery. Did you learn that from a comic book? Dr. Wells testified. He was smooth, professional, and convincing. He painted Samuel as a dangerous, unstable element. The defense lawyer was desperate. He had only two witnesses. First, the patient, the man who survived. The man, a construction worker, took the stand. He pointed at Samuel. He testified, his voice rough. That man, he saved my life. The doctors were gone. I was dying. He did what no one else could. The courtroom was moved, but it wasn't enough. The law was the law. The defense called its final witness, the nurse, Anna the Ailey. Anna walked to the stand. She was terrified. The hospital Dr. Wells had threatened her. They told her if she defended the janitor, her career, her license, everything she had worked for, would be over. She sat down. The prosecutor asked her, "Did you see the defendant, the janitor, stab this patient with a scalpel?" Anna looked at the prosecutor. She looked at Dr. Wells, who was staring her down, contempt. And then she looked at Samuel, and she told the truth. She told the court. He didn't stab him. He saved him. She explained the pneumothorax. She explained, in medical detail, the procedure Samuel had performed. The prosecutor, shocked, asked, "How would you know that? Are you a surgeon?" Anna replied, "No, but he is." The courtroom was stunned. The prosecutor pressed, "How could you possibly know that? He is an uneducated janitor." And Anna revealed the secret. She told the court she had seen Samuel for months in the viewing galleries, watching surgeries. She had seen the advanced surgical textbooks, the ledgers, hidden in his cleaning closet. She told them, "He knows the procedures better than the interns. He wasn't a madman. He was the only true surgeon in that room." The trial was in chaos. Dr. Wells was exposed as a liar. The hospital's cover-up was failing. The judge was furious. This was not a criminal case. It was a medical and ethical one. But the board of directors, the real antagonists, the corporation, realized they had a massive problem. The media was now turning against them. The story of the silent surgeon, the janitor hero, was exploding. They were about to be sued by the patient, and they were about to lose their accreditation for the fraud committed by Dr. Wells. They held a meeting with the judge. The charges were dropped. But the story doesn't end there. This is the inspirational part. The hospital, in a massive and very public relations move, offered Samuel a deal. They needed to fix this. They needed to look like the good guys. They offered Samuel a full scholarship to attend medical school in America, to recertify the degree he already deserved. They offered him a path back. This is the resolution. This is the 8-point prompt structure. The analysis. This is a story about the definition of qualification. Dr. Wells had the diploma. Samuel had the skill. It is a story of contempt. The system looked at Samuel and saw an African janitor, a uniform, an invisible man. They refused to see the genius hiding in plain sight. But skill, true skill, cannot be hidden forever. This is a story of resistance. The resistance of Nurse Anna, who risked her career to tell the truth, and the resistance of Samuel, who held on to his knowledge even when the world told him he was only good for mopping floors. This story asks us, what is true qualification? The paper on the wall, or the skill in the hands? The final scene, years later. Houston General. A new patient is rushed in. A code black. The nurses call for the new chief of trauma surgery. The door swings open, and in walks Dr. Samuel. He is wearing the white coat. He is the boss. He looks at the new, terrified intern, and he says, "Scalpel. This is the ultimate triumph. This is the African tale."